10 Forgotten 60s Films That Still Hold Up Today. The 60s changed everything: war, culture, cinema, yet some films got lost in the noise. These weren't the loudest hits, but they aged like buried treasure, waiting to be found. Decades later, their stories still echo, sharp, strange, and startlingly modern. The Swimmer, 1968, a poolside descent into suburbia's soul. Burt Lancaster stars in a surreal odyssey through backyard pools and broken dreams. He plays Ned Merrill, a man who decides to swim home through his neighbor's pools, but nothing is what it seems. Each stop along the way reveals a fracture in his perfect life and psyche. The film begins like a social satire but slowly mutates into a haunting existential drama. Lancaster gives one of his most vulnerable, tragic performances. There's a deep ache beneath the summer sun, a commentary on American illusion and self-denial. Experimental, emotional, and unsettling, The Swimmer was misunderstood at release. Now, it plays like a Twilight Zone episode dipped in melancholy and truth. This isn't a movie about swimming. It's about drowning, in denial. And it hits harder the older you get. Petulia, 1968, Romance at the Edge of Collapse. Julie Christie and George C. Scott star in a love story set against the decaying idealism of 60s San Francisco. But don't expect a typical romance. This is fractured, tragic, and achingly modern. Richard Lester directs with chaotic brilliance, using flashbacks and abrupt edits to mirror emotional disconnection. Christie is luminous and troubled, Scott is stoic and shattered. Their chemistry crackles with pain, not passion. The film captures the cultural whiplash of the era, from flower power to bitter cynicism. It bombed commercially but influenced a generation of filmmakers. Petulia is style and substance colliding in real time. It's a love story for people who've already lost everything. And it dares to say, not every connection saves you. Point Blank, 1967, cool, cold, and way ahead of its time. Lee Marvin plays a man double-crossed and left for dead, but death isn't done with him. Point Blank is a revenge thriller shot like a fractured fever dream. Director John Boorman used color, time, and silence like weapons. The violence is blunt, the editing radical, the mood pure noir futurism. This is cinema re-engineered, decades before Tarantino or Nolan. Marvin stalks the screen like a ghost made of grit. His vengeance is quiet, relentless, and emotionally vacant. Audiences in the 60s weren't ready, but modern viewers can't get enough. It's not just a cool crime flick, it's a cinematic blueprint. And it's still sharper than most thrillers today. The Innocents, 1961, the scariest film that never shows a monster. Before the others, before Hereditary, there was The Innocents. A gothic psychological horror that relies on dread, suggestion, and shadow. Deborah Kerr plays a governess who begins to suspect the children in her care are possessed, or worse. Shot in haunting black and white widescreen, the atmosphere is suffocating and elegant. You'll search every frame for ghosts, and question whether they're real. Based on Henry James' The Turn of the Screw, it's as much about repression as the supernatural. Kerr is magnificent, portraying unraveling sanity with quiet terror. The film's restraint is its power. It's what you don't see that chills your bones. And yes, it still scares. The Servant, 1963, power, class, and the collapse of control. In this top British psychological drama, a wealthy young man hires a manservant who slowly takes over his life. Directed by Joseph Losey and written by Harold Pinter, it simmers with repressed tension and class warfare. Dirk Bogarde is magnetic and malevolent as the servant with shifting motives. What begins as control becomes dependence, and eventually, inversion. The house becomes a psychological prison of status and surrender. With eerie framing and minimalist dialogue, every moment feels loaded. There's no music cue to tell you when to flinch, just silence and manipulation. It's a masterclass in atmosphere and slow disintegration. Still disturbingly relevant in a world of hidden hierarchies. The servant whispers treachery in the walls. If 1968, schoolboys, revolt, and rebellion on fire. A boarding school drama that ends in open revolution. Lindsay Anderson's If isn't subtle, it's a Molotov cocktail thrown at British tradition. Malcolm McDowell, in his breakout role, leads a trio of students resisting the cruelty and conformity of their elite school. Shot in both color and black and white, sometimes at random, the film drifts between realism and fantasy. It's darkly funny, deeply angry, and ultimately explosive. The themes of authoritarianism, violence, and youth rebellion still sting today. Censors tried to bury it, students made it a cult hit. The final scene? Legendary. It predicted both cinema's future and society's fractures. If you want to understand the rage of a generation, start here. This Sporting Life, 1963, Love, Violence, and the Unbearable Weight of Being. Richard Harris delivers a bruising, Oscar-nominated performance as a coal miner turned rugby star in this British realist masterpiece. He's brutal on the field, but even more so in love, raw, volatile, and emotionally stunted. His relationship with a grieving widow, Rachel Roberts, is equal parts tender and tragic. Directed by Lindsay Anderson, the film is bleak, beautiful, and completely unsentimental. The camera gets in close, painfully close, to every outburst, breakdown, and shattered dream. This isn't a sports movie, it's a portrait of masculinity unraveling under pressure. The black and white cinematography gives it stark, emotional weight. It's tough viewing, but painfully human. Forgotten outside of cinephile circles, it demands rediscovery. And it leaves a bruise that lasts. Knife in the Water, 1962, 3 people, 1 boat, infinite tension. Roman Polanski's first feature is minimalist brilliance. A couple invites a young hitchhiker onto their sailboat, and a psychological war begins. There are no explosions, no ghosts, no grand gestures, just ego, attraction, and barely hidden violence. The water feels claustrophobic, the wind carries tension. As class, age, and sexual rivalry swirl, every glance becomes loaded. The film is stripped bare, just 3 people, 1 location, and unspoken conflict. Polanski shows control and precision beyond his years. The camera drifts like a predator, circling its prey. One of the greatest debut films ever made. And a masterclass in less is more storytelling. The Haunting, 1963, The House That Hears You. Welcome to Hill House, where the walls breathe and the silence screams. Robert Wise's The Haunting is a horror film that never relies on blood, only dread. A team of researchers explores a haunted mansion with a tragic past. Julie Harris's performance is fragile, ethereal, and heartbreaking. The house becomes a character, alive, watching, judging. Sound design and cinematography do the work of 1,000 jump scares. This is psychological horror with elegance and impact. Stephen King cites it as one of the scariest films ever made, for good reason. It doesn't want to terrify you. It wants to possess you. And it never truly leaves. Seconds, 1966, Be careful what you wish for. A middle-aged man trades his life for a new identity, and gets more than he bargained for. John Frankenheimer's sci-fi drama is a haunting meditation on regret, reinvention, and the American dream turned nightmare. Rock Hudson delivers a career-best performance that subverts his heartthrob image. The black and white cinematography is distorted and paranoid, every angle unsettles. It's Black Mirror before technology existed. Themes of plastic surgery, conformity, and lost purpose feel terrifyingly modern. Ignored at release, the film is now hailed as a near masterpiece. It's existential horror masquerading as a thriller. The title is literal, you only get seconds. Use them wisely. The 1960s left behind more than flower power and revolution, it gave us quiet giants of cinema. These films whispered truths we're still chasing, about power, identity, fear, and longing. Forget the dusty reels, these forgotten gems are alive, and waiting to be seen.